Good morning. It's about time for us to begin. More? Okay. It's great to see you this morning. We welcome all our visitors and others from different classes this morning. We have a special session today during our class time period. Are we okay? I want to start out this way. God says through the prophet Isaiah, how beautiful are the feet of those who proclaim the good news of salvation and who say that God reigns. If you recall, we had a presentation back in February. We talked about a preacher, Billy Moore, who in the 1970s went to Nigeria. Now, Billy Moore preached at the Fulton Street Church of Christ in Butler, Missouri. And as a result of him going to Nigeria and others who would travel with him, we now support 10 preachers in Nigeria. At that same congregation today in Butler at Fulton Street, Felix Salazar preaches there, just like Billy did. And now he's traveling to Uganda. He's going to report to us what he found in his last trip there in February. And also he went to Kenya. And our elders chose to help finance that trip. Felix is one of the first group to obtain a bachelor's degree from Florida College in 1996, I believe it was, Felix, or 97. And he's been in Butler now for 8 years preaching. And he's come here today with his wife, Abby, and his 3 boys. And through other contacts, we met another who's preached across Uganda since 2014. His name is Patrick Young, and he is here with us today. He's going to give us kind of a 10-minute overview of the work there. He is from Phoenix, Arizona, has been a member of the East Valley Church near Phoenix since 2006. And I heard much about his preaching activities, and I was surprised to learn that he's not a full-time preacher. He actually is a program manager for Honeywell Aerospace after serving in the Air Force for about 5 years. So his hobbies are Bible study and preaching, or maybe it's the other way around. So, okay. But he's been to Uganda 7 times, and he just flew over, and I'm just thankful that he left his family. Thanks to his wife Pamela and his 3 children for letting him come over and give us a high-level overview of the work in Uganda. So again, he's going to spend about 10 minutes with this high-level presentation, and then he's going to turn it over to Felix to give more detail of his trip to Uganda.
Set my timer here. My job is to be brief and just give you an overview of the work in Uganda and in particular the environment and the nature of the churches of Christ there, and then I'll turn it over to Brother Felix as has been mentioned. This is our church on the top right there, East Valley Church of Christ near Phoenix, from a couple years ago anyway. So we're not a big church, about 80 members or so, but have been active in the work in Uganda and only really in the work in Uganda as opposed to any other particular nations outside of our local area. Just before we get into that though, why would we be involved in a place like Uganda or wherever that's so far away from where our home is? And we looked around and we were overwhelmed by the amount of scripture in the New Testament that talks about giving to the poor and how important it is. And we looked around at our congregation and decided that's not really us. We don't have the poor where we are. As a society and a country, we do a pretty good job of keeping the poor other places. And so we needed to look for somewhere else where we could be of benefit to our brothers in the faith. And we look at the scripture and we think, it's an amazing thing that the Lord reveals to us that we can obtain heavenly treasure. And we can do that in such an easy manner. All we have to do is trade our physical treasure for it here by giving it to the poor. That's an amazing thing that currency exchange could work. But when Jesus says it repeatedly, we believe it. And so we take it as being important, and we put a lot of effort into making that physical to spiritual currency exchange. Now over to the environment in Uganda. Uganda physically is a nation in central eastern Africa, just on top of Lake Victoria, as you see there, a large freshwater lake. It's about twice the size of Tennessee geographically. It is a lot of countryside, though, once you get out of Kampala. Lots of water, lots of rivers, lots of lakes, lots of rain, and incredibly rich soil. So lots of things grow there. Everything grows there. All the red dots you see there, by the way, those are cities and towns that have served as areas where we've done a lot of work and where I've spent a lot of time in particular at the churches around there. So everything grows there, as we say, but there's not a lot of irrigation. So if there's, for the people that live out in the country, if you don't hit just the right crop at just the right season with just the right rain and just the right heat, you may just lose your crop that season. And so in any particular month that you run into that, there may be a time where a large group of our brethren just don't know where tomorrow's meal is coming from. But as it relates to the religious environment there, you can see that I've got other Christians circled there. That's where we live as the world sort of delegates us in that group, and we're not that group as a whole, but Churches of Christ are a portion of that other Christian group. And actually, the ratio of members of the Churches of Christ in Uganda compared to other groups is about the same as it is in America, right? It's about 1% here. It's about 1% there. So there are, if you think about that, there are lots of Churches of Christ in Uganda. You may not have realized that. It's not always well known, but it's throughout the country. Just to give you an idea, our church at East Valley has worked with, has provided supplemental food support to more than 80 congregations there in the last 2 years. Now, most of those congregations are limited as far as how far somebody can be coming from by their walking distance, right? And so you may have several congregations in one area that you go, man, this is really close. But if you have to walk to church, it's not as close as you think it is. So lots of congregations throughout the nation of Uganda. Just to give you an idea of sort of the variety that's there, there's a high variety of means and a high variety of skill within those churches and the people that serve in those churches. And so I'll just show you a few of the different types of buildings that you'll find if you go there to worship. And it gives you an idea of the living conditions there. So you might start with like a lean-to and a thatched roof here. Maybe you have saints worshiping under a tree. Maybe they've got a tent. Also still pretty meager, sticks packed with mud. This is pretty common for beginning churches to be just renting a commercial space. This is what a strip mall looks like in Uganda, a small commercial space where you would usually find a store. You can rent this for $5 or $10 a month, and they'll struggle to get that $5 or $10 a month. It is as uncomfortable as it looks in a room like that. It gets hot, and so consequently the saints there are always looking to move into something better if they can. This is much more comfortable, right? Still a dirt floor, but brick building with timbers for the roof and iron sheets on top. Which works out well unless you're trying to preach and it starts raining, and then you really have to yell to get over the sound of that tin roof. But much more comfortable there. And I've only ever seen one about like this with plaster and a baptistry on the corner of the building that they can fill up or let go, and a cement floor inside. But as I say, it depends on the tech savviness, the contacts, the skill of the preaching men that are there and what funds they're able to raise, because you can be assured they're not funding this themselves. The saints are not. And so wide variety of churches there throughout the nation. Let's talk briefly about evangelism. If you wanted to be involved in a evangelism ministry there, know that there are already a lot of skilled preachers living in Uganda, and by the way, highly committed evangelists, highly committed to spreading the gospel. They will do it through gospel campaigns in city squares all day, through small classes, and they will baptize a lot of folks and make a lot of Christians. And so they have that skill and are good at it. So in the time I've been going there, I quickly found out I don't need to spend a lot of time preaching there, especially if we're going to wait for a translator. Just let these men preach. They do a great job of that. Very skilled in particular in how to be saved, very skilled in proper worship, very skilled in righteous living, and they make their camp between Matthew and Jude. That's where their strength lies within our scripture. Outside of that, there's a pretty steep drop-off as far as amount of time that they spend, but they speak to their audience as well. Now, there is a problem. A Church of Christ preacher industry has developed, right? We don't have a centralized earthly structure in our groups as we do in other churches on this planet. And so consequently, it's sort of every man for himself. They'll find a Bible school or a preaching school to go to. They'll come out of that, and then the next job is, well, I better go find an American to support me in the preaching that I'm doing over here. And if they can do that, then they'll be able to make a living as a preacher. And if not, there's sure nobody there funding them to do that. The congregations there just don't. It's part behavioral problem, part means problem, right? But because we tend to fail to understand the economics there and the living wage in these places, which is about $190 per month, we'll come in and we'll lift that preacher up and make him the rich man in that group. And then everybody comes to him for a little bit of trickle-down support. It's not a situation that's good. So we got to be aware of the economics of the place where they live if you're going to go in and do good work. If you're going to go in and throw $1,000 a month at a preacher, you're going to create a problem. Clearly, we want the preachers to have blessings, but we don't want to create the problem that goes with that. We want to be a benefit to all of the saints that are there as much as we can. It has led to some pretty widespread dishonesty financially as well. So you just have to be, you just have to know if you're going to go into ministry there, you're going to go through some of that. You're going to find some dishonesty. Your heart's going to get a little broken from time to time in order to get to the beneficial work that you're going to want to get to. From a benevolence perspective, we're pretty committed to food distribution. It most closely matches the scripture, and it's a way to get past the preacher and his family and benefit the entire church of poor people there. This is a need constantly, right? And it's not quite like what you read in the New Testament about there was going to be a famine in Judea in those days and it was prophesied. Sometimes that may happen, but it's more seasonal, it's more regional, it's more all the time. They just don't have the means we have, so there's always some hunger there and always people asking, and we do what we can, right? We give of our means for this effort. We're actually pretty committed to building church buildings these days. In the past, we didn't want to be involved in that because we could say, you can worship under a tree, it's fine. That's the end of my time. I'm going to quickly get off that. I did that. Quickly get off the stage. But you notice none of us like to worship under trees. It's not very convenient. And so this turns out to be a pretty big blessing. You can build a church building and buy property there for between $6,000 and $12,000 total. And so we do a few of those a year for churches that have been established for a while that just don't have the means to. And as far as widows, orphans, and people who need medical help, we find it to be best to do that on a personal knowledge basis rather than trying to do something in bulk. Because when you do something in bulk, it creates an opportunity for someone to just be siphoning that off and really benefiting themselves. But if you're able to get to every congregation there has some widows and some orphans. So if you work with the churches, let them make the request and then deal with each on a case-by-case basis, though it's not super efficient, that tends to be the way that we find most beneficial. I'm not going to go through each one of these. These are just some recommendations. You can talk to me more afterward if you're interested. If you're going to be involved in a ministry work like this, here are some things to keep in mind, some tips, if you will, to get through sort of the learning curve maybe that goes into it when you go into a ministry effort like this. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my brother Felix here, who's going to speak about the trip that you all funded and what he was able to find and the good work he's doing. Thank you.
Let me begin this morning with wishing a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers here this morning. it occurs to me that how special mothers are, as God looked over all the creation of the earth and saw that it was good, and yet man was alone. And he made woman, and he made the family. And it is my opinion that much of what Brother Patrick speaks of, to the financial distress, the difficulties that they experience there, is because of the lack of family. And so we look at the scriptures and see that beautiful moment that God caused the deep sleep to fall upon Adam and fashioned from man a woman. This morning, I also want to begin with giving a message of gratitude and honor. This was my first trip to Uganda, to Kenya. Not my first trip out of the country, but it was an experience that forever changed my life, and express great gratitude. And I believe that the experience that I had is hoping to help others as well there. I have a much smaller focus of attention that has been handed down to me from Paul Kaufman, who had been going there to Uganda for quite some time. I did not wake up 2 years ago and say, man, I'd like to do some missionary work in Uganda. It's kind of just, in the providence of God, fell into my lap and could not, in good conscience, just turn away from what I saw were the needs. If you were to jump on a plane in Dallas, Texas, you have a flight of about 8,000 miles that you're going to take. It's a good 15-hour flight, and that is an experience that will forever change your perspective on flying. If you're any claustrophobic, be prepared. That it is quite a deal. I think I watched 3 seasons of Office. So I just tried to tune out. I'm a little claustrophobic, so I just tried to tune out what was going on around me. I want to cite here the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, plays an important part of what we're going to talk about just briefly this morning, as Uganda is a neighbor there to the DRC. In February the 13th, just before I was taking flight on the 18th, 70 Christians were beheaded in the DRC by Muslims. And that's much of the problem in the DRC is the Muslims, there's a power struggle for the mineral rights, and Christians are kind of caught in the middle, and Christians are a prey for Muslims. That has a lot of impact on what happens in Kasisi. We fly into Kampala. Oop, that's not gonna. It's more. Okay. Anyway, Kampala's in the middle. Oops, I didn't push that button. Kampala there in the middle. We take an 8-hour drive to Kasisi, and it is a life-changing moment. And just in Kampala, we stayed in a little motel. There's my air conditioner sitting on front of a TV. It's just a little fan, and really the temperatures don't vary too much from 70 degrees. But there are mosquitoes, and those mosquitoes require you to have a net around your. This clicker is a little touchy, around your bed. So I got bit once, and of course everybody's all afraid of malaria and stuff, but I survived through it. But I tell you what, in Missouri, I don't know about you all, but you can go some places and the mosquitoes will carry you away. And I just never really experienced that. Maybe it was the season that I was there. There were not a lot of mosquitoes in the areas that I was in. And the folks there really didn't seem to be bothered by it as well. So that was Kampala, where we flew in at. We jump in a little vehicle like this. There were 5 of us, and it was very, very tight. And an 8-hour trip, roads like that dirt road there, and and people along the sides and in the middle of the road. But there was also highways. The Chinese had built many of the highways there, but in between the highways, you would have much dirt road, and you'd have potholes that would swallow vehicles, and the driver did not really use the brake much. It was pedal to the metal, and if you're in the back seat, I can tell you that little Nissan did not have much cushion at all. The next day, I was very sore. It was quite an adventure on that. So the next day, it rained heavily and a lot of flooding. We're going to go pick up a preacher. We have gone to Kasisi and traveled we're on our way to Kitsawamba. And we've rented some chairs at the meeting place, and you see we had some visitors there in the background, some cows and sheep. There'd be shepherds moving their sheep throughout the day along the road. So that was a little bit different for me. Here's inside the building. Many of these Christians had traveled a long ways, as Brother Patrick mentioned. Most just travel to where they can go by foot. These folks traveled a lot further for the special meeting we were having at Kitsawamba, and so they brought their rolls, their bed rolls. They were going to spend the night there. We were there for a 3-day weekend, 3-day gospel meeting. I thought that was I just appreciated that commitment out of these Christians. They were going to sleep on that dirt floor in that church building. Here, I forgot to ask if we had sound. I was going to let you hear a little bit of the singing. I don't have a mouse up here to do it, but so their songs, many of their songs, they sing the same ones as we do. You can pick it up, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear people sing how great thou art in another language, and just sing with so much heart and fervency. It's very moving, a moving experience. No sound. Okay. So we catered a meal, and that was bringing in a group of individuals. They actually cooked the meal on the other side of the building, and you can see that the green tub is a green tub of rice. There was some other stuff there that I was not going to eat, but I did have some rice and a plantain, which, if you're familiar with the plantains, they're getting more popular here in the States. It looks like a banana, but it tastes more like a potato, and it's not very good. But if it's this, they just boiled these, so they had zero flavor. But if you fry them up, and you throw salt on anything, it tastes. You can deal with it. But so we catered the meal for Friday and Saturday. Supplied bottled water to drink. Saturday was a hard day for me. It was kind of a lesson here in a third world country where we bought all of the water in the city, all the bottled water, all the bottled soda in the city, and we didn't have enough. And for all those Christians that come to spend the night there, that was their only meal for the day. And they were not going to be leaving. And that meant some of them didn't have any water for that day. That was hard to watch. That was hard. I didn't eat that day on Saturday because I sure didn't. Basically, it was the same meal. I didn't want to eat and then not have anything to drink. So we didn't run out of food, but we ran out of something to drink, and that was difficult to watch the little children not have anything to drink that day. And not be able to go to the side of the building and turn on a tap because there is no such thing in many of these villages. On Friday, I noticed a lot of folks didn't have Bibles. a lot of these Christians didn't have Bibles, so I said, I want you to write your name down here, and if you don't have a Bible, I want to know about it. And Saturday morning, we took those names and we distributed 60 Bibles. You helped bring that about. These people were just on cloud nine, being able to have their own Bible in the Swahili language that they spoke. Many of these folks been Christians a long time and never having a Bible. That was pretty cool. We we were short because on Saturday we had 20 more people show up that wanted a Bible. It took us a bit, a month and a half, and we got them their Bibles as well. So over here, that's me and one of the preachers. There were a number of preachers that were there. Me in the middle, having my personal space invaded by these little children that loved the camera. And, you know, I'm really a loving, hugging guy, and these people were strangers. These kids had no personal space at all, and they were just all over. And I was like, eventually I just kind of like, okay, I'll just roll with it. But they were very sweet. They loved the camera. They were very, very, very cute. And then in this far picture, you see whatever that was, the chicken and some kind of sauce that they all put on their rice. I wanted no part with that. Also, the fact I didn't mention that they literally butchered their chickens that morning. That did not serve well for my palate. It did not make me hungry at all for the chicken. But yeah, so it was quite a change. So worship service at the front of the building, they had a list there. You had a song leader, you had an opening prayer, collection for the saints. Brother Johnson, he spoke. I did the teaching. I also spoke after his sermon, even though it wasn't on the deal. All the little kids, there's about 40 of them here. Many of these children are orphans raised by brethren. Kitsawamba is also there south of Kasisi. Many of these children come out of the DRC, but some of them are just there. There in the background, you see a building. Brother Patrick mentioned the mud and sticks. On the other side of that is where they butchered the chickens. There's a close-up of they take those sticks and they just pack it with mud, and that mud is quite yeah. It's solid. It's solid. I mean, for mud and sticks, I mean, it doesn't last forever, but yeah, it's a little different. In Kasisi, this is a group of 9 orphans. They are raised by Brother Morris and his wife. Here is the food bill for the month of April, and it says $910,000. That's Ugandan money. That amounts to about $250 to feed them in the month of April. Everybody who is taking care of orphans needs help. They have to give receipts. Every dime has to be accounted for. I tell them we need to know this information. We're just not going to give you money without an accounting of it. That amounts to about $250 of a month of taking care of these 9 children. And as you can see, you know, they vary anywhere from 5, 6, up to in their early teens. And as an alternative to Christians taking care of orphans in the village of Kasisi, there's a rock quarry where there are 82 children, as of last count, working 6 days a week, 11 hours a day, for 1, maybe 2 meals a day, in a place of shelter that may be under a tree or under a porch. So it's just mind-boggling to think of one of my children having to make a living doing something like this. You see in their hands, it's basically a stick, and it has a rock tied on the end of it, and they sit on a pile of marble or granite, and you go to the store, go to Lowe's, Home Depot, and you can buy those bags of pretty rock. I'm not going to tell you that's where this rock came from, but that's what they're doing. They're making that into fancier rock that can be used decoratively. You just let that sink in for a moment. That's what these children do. This month, the boss, manager, whoever he is, called a Christian by the name of Esther and said, "I have got 8 children at the rock quarry that have malaria. You need to come get them or they're going to die." So she could not turn that away. And so now she was overseeing 12. Now she's upwards of 20. She is a Christian, and she has to be teaching them Bible. It's one of the requirements for her to receive money. She has to be willing to show receipts if she's going to receive money to help care for these children. I was a little taken back that she took the 8 children in, and of course they don't want to leave. And I told her her budget was tight, and I'm not sure how we're going to raise the money to take care of the 8. They don't have beds. They're sleeping on the ground right now, and they have limited clothing. So that was Uganda. I also ran into a fellow by the name of Thiambo Enoch. He worships at Casa Mbaya, Uganda, and he has a friend, Gerald, and Gerald got polio when he was 12 years of age and lost his ability to walk. He's 18 now, and Enoch carries Gerald everywhere he goes. It's kind of his brotherly thing to do for him. I asked him if he had a wheelchair. He didn't have a wheelchair. Knowing the terrain of Uganda, and yes, he needs a wheelchair, but I think more importantly, if he had an electric wheelchair, would even be better, an all-terrain wheelchair for all of $1,350. I've been trying to raise money for that. Would give him some, as an 18-year-old boy, a little bit of freedom, where he doesn't have to be carried around by anybody. Somebody has donated a piece of their ground so he can raise a goat or 2 to help give back a little bit to those who care for him. Still trying to raise money for that. He has an electrical outlet, or has access to one, where he lives, so he can charge the battery on the all-terrain wheelchair. So spent 6 days there in Uganda, and then flew to Kenya. A couple hours flight. In Kenya, they are known for having the largest slums in the world. Wouldn't you like to be known to have that in Nairobi? And I mean, you can see it goes for as far as the eye can see. The building on top of building on top of building. It is just amazing how some of these folks live. I mean, we complain about having our houses on top of houses. This is like nothing we've ever seen. This is a fish. What was the fish? Tilapia. Yeah. So I was having dinner with a false prophet And let's talk about an interesting dinner table. False prophet, a politician, and a doctor. And the false prophet was kind of a funny guy. And I mean, he was just a Pentecostal, starting his own religion kind of individual. Just some of the contacts that Paul Kaufman had. He just kind of tagged along. He dared me to eat this tilapia, and I'm like, hey, you know, I've eaten tilapia, right? What's the big deal? Well, I didn't know it was going to be looking back at me. In fact, it was. So, you know, it tastes like fish, and literally the whole fish is in there. They did gut it, thankfully, except the head. And I don't have another picture, but the false prophet was, he ate there was hardly anything left of that fish. And I dug a little too far deep with my fork into that brain, and I'm here to tell you, I about lost my whole meal right there. It was horrific the way that brain tasted. Then the porridge there, everybody just loves that porridge, that brown bowl-looking thing, and it's nothing but meal of some kind, has zero flavor whatsoever, but they sure loved that. So from Nairobi, we went 3.5 hours to Naruru for a preacher's meeting. Over here on the far left, something that is very important to them is fruit of the vine in powdered form. They do not have refrigeration, not just in Kenya, but also in Uganda. So I took about 50 pounds of fruit of the vine, so they can take a little scoop of that, mix it with water, and voila, they've got fruit of the vine. I handed out many tracts, the One True Church. There's the trip from Nairobi to Naruru. And then I was introduced to this fellow by the name of Honey, and that's really his name. And just the sweetest guy, he stood up in the middle of the preacher's meeting and said, I have 40 orphans, and I do not believe the church needs to be burdened with this. And so he uses the community and anybody willing to volunteer to help take care of his quote-unquote orphans. Very, very sweet guy, and I wasn't there, but Paul and his wife and another lady went to visit them and took them toothbrushes, and you know, everything was on the up and up. I want to conclude this morning talking about this mother, Lindsay. She's the one wearing the red hoodie. Lindsay's 27 years of age. She's been an orphan since she was 15. Mother died, she never knew her dad, which is typical, and I believe the problem in Kenya, in Uganda. She is raising her sisters on the far. That is Stella. She is 21 years of age. She is a college student. She is studying at university. She received that because her grades were so high. But she has to pay some of her expenses. And then in the back, far back there, that's Lindsay's other sister. Her name is Grace. And she's 17. She goes to school as well. And then the two little children are Lindsay's. Wyatt, nope, that's not right. I've forgotten their names. And so Lindsay's also pregnant. So Lindsay left her husband because he was trying to molest her younger sister, Grace. And then she admits that she fell into loneliness and under his spell about 5 months ago, and she got impregnated again. And so she's about 4 or 5 months pregnant. Last month, This guy's a real special kind of guy. Last month he came by and offered her a soda, and she drank of it, and she would spend the next couple days in the hospital, and he tried to poison her. She says she's better now, that they cleansed her out, got all the poison out. So Paul committed to supporting Lindsay, has for years. It costs about $800 a month for Lindsay to live in Kenya and take care, that includes taking care of her sister who's in college for just a little bit longer, as well as her other sister. I met Lindsay, and she's a very, very sweet girl. But this is the epitome of what family looks like in so many of these churches. Here's an orphan that's made it this far, and she is chronically unemployed, doesn't have a job. She has at times been able to go to a market and buy excessive fruit and go sell it along the roadside. You saw the road there. It's much like that in Kenya as well as in Uganda. Vendors trying to sell. You stop, slow down. People run to your car and try to sell you fruit. Her and her sister back in December tried to sell some fruit, and they were selling it too late, and some guys came along and they beat Lindsay up, and they molested Grace. But they don't want to be beggars. They are uncomfortable. Lindsay is uncomfortable begging or asking for help, asking for support. But there she is. She's in a place where she's got 2 babies to care for, and trying to help her sisters get to not live the way she's had to live as a codependent upon the kindness of others and the kindness of you. So as a tribute to mothers, Lindsay's a little different as she struggles to make ends meet for her family. I am grateful and started a 501c3 that is a way that a congregation or an individual can direct money directly to folks like Lindsay, like Enoch, any of these brethren that you might read in my reports. You can get documentation and receive the monthly reports of the work in Central Africa with proper tax deduction. Right now, I'm using my debit card for Bank of America, going to Western Union, and it's very inexpensive. If you have a phone in Kenya or Uganda, they have the mobile wallet. Nobody carries cash like we might here. And you get a taxi, you just take your phone out and you just tap it on someone else's phone and you pay them. It's very, very simple, very efficient, and it's not very expensive. I see this as ATIC as the way of Epaphroditus, delivering money to Paul. He was a Philippian, serving Paul for the Philippians, or like Corinth had to select some Christians to deliver their gift to Jerusalem. ATIC gives as is directed by the giver. That giver, some folks want their money for orphans, preaching, or just leave it up to my discretion. All funds are collected from Christians, sent to Christians, trying to have all things in common. You can make your checks out to ATIC, care of Felix Salazar. There's my contact information. Or you can just save a stamp and deposit money into any Bank of America or use Zelle. And just wanted to express my appreciation for the opportunity this morning to share this word with you, and also your support in the past, and the elders give me this opportunity.